beautiful, for heroes proved.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to 87 Live, the official radio show of 87sportsfans.com, brought to you on 87 Sports Fans Radio. A little somber intro before we get into the world of sports, being today being September 11th and all that.
Can you believe it's been 12 years?
No, I really can't.
Where the hell has time gone? Seems like it was just yesterday.
And you're watching, like my wife was watching the History Channel, doing the nonstop coverage, unnarrated, just the raw footage and everything. It just brings it all back. So,
and it should. Someone had a good point this morning. It was on the radio. I was listening. Someone called into one of the morning shows. They said that September 11th needs to become a national holiday.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't agree more.
Oh, they'll never do that, though.
It has to be remembered up there with every other holiday that we. I mean, if we have a holiday like Valentine's Day that's looked at as a national holiday,
it's not
which
really
is a bunch of garbage.
Holiday, it's not really a national holiday. People don't get off for Valentine's Day.
You know how many people take off for Valentine's Day? They don't get off, but they
careful.
Careful,
slippery
I
slope.
think it should be a national holiday. It should be a day of remembrance, and for the foreseeable future, I believe more channels than the History Channel need to replay that just so people remember. A lot of people forget what's going on, but it's that's the world today too. It's not just 12 years ago. It's what's going on now and what could happen again. So
obviously our thoughts are with those that we lost that day, needlessly.
I gotta say, it led to one of the best moments in sports in the last 2 decades. And I know you're not a Yankee fan, but do you remember when George Bush...
Oh.
And I know people are not George Bush fans, but when he threw out that first pitch in the Yankee game, in the World Series, that was...
Do you know the story behind it? Like what
absolutely.
happened right before? He's warming up.
He was warming up underneath Yankee Stadium, and Jeter walked by and said, "Wait, is that the president warming up in there?" And you know what? Honestly, you got to give the man credit. He stood on the pitcher's mound. He refused to stand in front of me. He stood on the pitcher's mound, and he threw a laser beam.
Well, that's because Jeter told him to.
Yeah.
Jeter said, "Don't throw from the front of the mound. This is Yankee Stadium."
Yeah. And that's the funny part. And for people, I have a lot of people in my life, past and present, who, and I understand they just have never got into sports and they don't really understand the importance of sports. But for people in New York City after 9/11, baseball getting back, football getting back, that was more of a healing moment to a lot of people than anything else. It was just sports and being able to root for their teams again.
It was just like a feeling that we're not healed, but we will go on.
Yeah.
And in that situation, absolutely necessary. So
absolutely.
Alrighty. So now you missed last week because you were.
I was
battling the plague.
Not in the good '80s way either.
Right. Battling the plague. Now that you're back with us. Last week was all football. We didn't get a chance to talk about much of anything else in the world of sports besides football, which was fine. It was week 1.
And it's understandable.
A lot of previews and picks to make. So now, today, let's begin with going around the Major League Baseball standings. And,
yes.
We are in the proverbial home stretch here, the second week of September. About 3 weeks left to go in the regular season. And you have, let's start with the American League, the Boston Red Sox with a comfortable 8.5 game lead in the division.
Yeah.
The Rays, who are floundering of late. And then the Orioles with a half game lead on the Yankees. And the Blue Jays, who I picked to struggle, but not that much.
Yeah, they're
never were able to get out of their own way.
But who would have thought?
They've had injuries too, though. The Miguel Batista hasn't been a complete player for like 2 or 3 seasons now. Yeah. Go ahead.
But I was going to say is who would have thought? And I know from what we went over in our Major League Baseball preview show that the American League wildcard race would be the thing everyone's talking about, because the National League wildcard race is pretty much locked up. But in the American League, you have 6 teams vying for those 2 spots, because Kansas City is 2.5 games back of Tampa for that last spot. And then you have Cleveland at 2 games, Yankee at 2 games, and the Orioles, like you said, a half game ahead of the Yankees. They're 1.5 out of that spot. So you have 6 teams with a legitimate chance and a legitimate push for that final, or for those 2 wildcard spots, which is unbelievable. I mean, that's incredibly tight.
And you know who I'm pulling for?
Cleveland?
Nope. Out of all those teams, it's got nothing. And no, I'm not rooting
Don't
for
tell
the
me Kansas City.
I want the Royals. That market. Could you imagine just the prospect, however remote the chances could possibly be, but just the chance, the 1 in a million shot that we could have a Royals Pirates World Series.
Oh my God. That would be amazing.
The baseball infrastructure would just crumble beneath itself.
Yeah. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. I mean, part of me is, I'm a Yankee fan, so of course I'm pulling for the Yanks, because I mean, it is, as much as it is a just incredible season for Boston, and you and I both picked them to be at the bottom of the barrel, the Yankees are right up there with them. I mean, they should not be where they are right now. I mean, with the stuff that went on this year as far as injuries, and now Jeter's out again for the rest of the season, and Mariano is starting to show a little wavering here towards the end of the season, and that could definitely be something that has to do with age, and all of the controversy with A-Rod, injuries to Teixeira, who's still out, and they lost Granderson a couple times this season. They somehow, I don't know how they are where they are. Like, if they even make the postseason, I would consider that a victory. Like, I know everyone says, "Oh, the Yankees, it's not a great season unless they win the World Series." This season, if they can make it to the postseason, that is a victory. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. Cleveland or Kansas City would be great. Cleveland would be great. Even Baltimore, I would love to see, because all 3 of them are young teams. They have a lot of talent, but I don't know. I guess the Yankees is just like that old horse that finds a way to make it into the final stretch of the Belmont Stakes or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So let's say that right now Boston's leading the American League. So let's say Boston gets the 1 seed. Let's say on some way, some chance, the Royals sneak into that last wild card spot. Okay, should they somehow eventually face the Red Sox, the Royals are 5-2 this season against the Red Sox. So it wouldn't necessarily be an open and shut case. I'm just saying. I'm holding out hope.
And really, if you and to go with, I mean, you have Boston, you have Oakland, and you have Detroit. All 3 of them have had great seasons, but like you said, all 3 of them have wavered at times against teams they should have easily beat. So, I mean, it is interesting that in the American League, you have a better chance of a team like Kansas City or Cleveland making it to the World Series, just because they'll get hot at the right time against one of these teams and find a way to win. Where you look at the National League and, the teams that are in the lead, chances are, I do not see Atlanta falling to, like, Cincinnati. And Cincinnati's great, but just Atlanta looks so tough. And there's no team in the American League that's really – that I have that kind of feeling where I'm like, yeah, I think they're going to win regardless. It's just – it's something about the American League, man. I think it's going to be the most exciting part of the postseason.
I think that what you have in the American League is a lot of teams that aren't really. There's no clear favorite in the American League, and I think in the National League, I guess maybe I'm describing this wrong. I think the quality of baseball is better in the National League.
Oh, easy.
So I can't really see if you're all equally good or you're all equally not so good. When you play each other, it's still going to be exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether it's 7-6 or 4-3, it's still going to be exciting. So I think we're in for a humdinger of a postseason.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait. Postseason baseball is so underrated. It really is. If anybody tells you how boring baseball is, you got to turn on a playoff game and just watch. Especially not so much maybe game one, but if game two you watch how the team that lost game one reacts, and then as the season goes on and on, those later inning games, it just becomes so intense.
And really, out of any sport, that last week before the postseason is just insane. Because and like we were talking about in the American League, we're going to have some of these teams that it's going to come down with one of these, if not both of these wild card slots, could come down to the last day. And that's what's great about baseball, is a lot of these final postseason berths are decided either on the last day or like last year and in the past, they've had to have two teams play an extra game just to settle who's going to make that last spot, which that's great. I mean, to me, there's nothing more exciting than that.
So the only division in the American League that isn't wrapped up is the West, with the Rangers trailing the Oakland Athletics by 2 games. Tell me if you had the A's winning this division at the beginning of the season, and I'll call you a bold-faced liar.
No, I had Texas.
I think I picked the Angels.
I think you picked the Angels, but I had Texas. So it was, Oakland. They're up there with Pittsburgh in my eyes. Is I knew they were good. They've been good the last few years, but I didn't expect them to be quite as good.
I had big questions about their pitching going in, but you look where they rank. They're second in the AL in wins, second in ERA, second in complete games, second in earned runs, third in hits.
See, they're 6th in runs scored.
They're a surprisingly balanced team.
Yes.
You know, they could always be a little bit better on the offensive side of the ball, but they're fifth. Yeah, like you said, they're 5th in runs scored. What I'm looking at on BaseballReference.com.
But they're only, and that's in what you were saying about the pitching. There are 2 teams in the American League that, like, who? Okay, without looking, what would you guess the 2 teams are? I just actually kind of gave one away. That have the lowest runs given up.
Runs, or you mean the lowest earned runs allowed?
Runs allowed, yes.
Yeah. One would be the A's.
Yes.
And the other, let me think. Let me try to make an educated guess here. It would probably be the Tigers.
Nope. The Kansas City Royals.
See? Damn it.
Can you believe that, though? I mean, you were just talking about them, and I'm looking at it now. I mean, if they could have scored runs this year, they would be up there ahead of Detroit. I mean, they only given up 555 runs.
Pitching wins you championships. There's a chance.
You're right, and if they can find a way at the end of this season, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to think about it. I mean, Kansas City, somewhere George Brett is just getting all psyched. He's pine-tarring up his cob.
Well, that's the other thing, is that if Kansas City makes it to the World Series, how many times are we going to see that clip of George Brett going nuts?
Oh, my God.
I never get tired of that. Never get tired of that.
Well, okay, how important then are the next 3 series that Kansas City is playing? Is 3 at Detroit, 3 home against Cleveland, 3 home against Texas.
Yeah. Like,
that is a brutal stretch, but if they can make it through that stretch somehow with I don't even want to go too far, maybe say 6-3, even at 5-4. If they can find a way to get a winning record in that stretch, I think they're going to be in good shape.
They, if they somehow sneak into that wild card spot after that run, you can't take anything away from them. You can't say luck or anything like that. They will have earned it.
Yeah.
So flip-flopping over now to the National League. The East Division is done. 12-game lead for the Braves. The West Division is done. The Dodgers, on the back of Yasiel Puig midseason, has run away with that division, leading the Diamondbacks, which were my pick to win the division by 13
and
games.
I think my pick was the Dodgers, wasn't it?
I think
Pretty sure.
I think you picked the Giants.
I don't know.
But I didn't pick the Giants to be 65 and 80. That's for sure.
No, that's ridiculous.
But the D-backs, I thought were going to be the one to sneak it. And until Puig's promotion, I was being proved right. But
yeah. Well, once again, and I think Puig definitely was the catalyst. But is there a bigger train wreck waiting to happen than Puig? I mean, it's already shown signs this season with his attitude and his the way he prepares and the way, being late, and he's such a cocky son of a bitch.
Well, Puig is all raw ability. That's no expert analysis. Okay, he's just writing on what God has given him the ability to do, and sooner or later that runs out, and you need to actually be able to play the game. So we'll see. I still stand by my previous claim that he should have been on the All-Star team.
Sorry, drop my phone.
That's right. But going forward,
but now here's the thing. He should have been on the All-Star game. I agree with you. He should have definitely been in the All-Star break. But would you, if he continues these issues, would you take the chance at throwing a bunch of money at him, knowing that at any given time he could have some kind of meltdown that's going to get him suspended?
Anything other than a performance-laden, incentive-laden contract is a risky move.
Because if you think about it, he was the catalyst, but it's what Don Mattingly said in the beginning of the season is just wait till all the players get healthy. And once all of the Dodgers got healthy, I mean, there were a lot of games Puig didn't do anything. And that team has just become a beast.
You know what Puig did? He came in and he got really hot really early in his career and created a buzz, and he made the game fun again. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that kind of momentum, when you get guys feeling like that, it goes a long way. It really does. It goes a long way. The Central Division, still some contesting to do. The St. Louis Cardinals currently leading by 1 game over the Pirates. And then the Reds, who are still in the neighborhood, only 3 games. It'll be hard because both those teams ahead of them are very good teams, but they still have a shot at something working out their way and making me the prognosticator that I am. Because that's who I picked.
But how dominant is the Central? I mean, 3 of the teams in the postseason out of the National League is going to come from the Central.
Yep.
I mean, that's just... And you look at the Brewers, which I don't think either of us picked them to be as bad as they were. I mean, I don't think we picked them to do well, but I don't think I picked them to be this bad.
Well, they are without a roided-up Ryan Braun.
Yeah.
He was hurt anyway, but even if he could come back, he won't. So they've had issues. They've had other issues that most teams don't have to worry about, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm really just looking forward to I'm looking at the wild card standings now. It would be Pittsburgh and Cincinnati with a 6-game lead on the Nationals. So it looks to be that those 2 teams will make the wild card. So I'm looking forward to seeing Pittsburgh in the postseason for the first time since a man named Bonds was patrolling their outfield.
And you got to give them respect because Pittsburgh. What I loved about the other night is they celebrated the fact that it's the first time they've had a winning season since the early 90s with Bonds. And they celebrated as if they won the World Series. And that was awesome to me. Because that's a team realizing that they've done something positive for the city, really. I mean, the Steelers are crap, and the Penguins are nothing like they used to be. And then the Pirates, who have been just garbage since the Bonds Bonilla days, they finally have gotten back, and they've done it the right way through young talent and not throwing a bunch of money at people, and they've just become this great unit. And I'll be honest with you, if the Yankees don't make it into the postseason, I'm rooting for Pittsburgh. They are my team that I am not a bandwagon or nothing. I'm just pushing for them to win. I hope they win.
I don't think this story can be drummed up enough, because it's been so long, and that team has been so bad for so long, and every glimmer of hope, every light at the end of the tunnel did turn out to be a train, so they are baseball's feel-good story, absolutely.
Yeah.
As much as there's been many, many negative distractions this baseball season. But the Pirates are the shining star, and Selig is hoping to God they go deep in the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hoping to.
And they're such a balanced team. They are. They have very good pitching, and their hitting's all right. But it seems like in games when the pitching struggled, the batters would step it up, and then in games when the batters struggled, the pitchers would shut out the teams. And they're so perfectly tuned that. It's like you said, it is a feel-good story, and I hope they don't have to play Atlanta in the first round. That would be cruel.
As they say in Germany, we shall see. I'm just kidding. They don't really say that, but let's. On that note, let's take a break, and when we come back, Monty stops by. We're going to take a little trip through the NBA, go through the Atlantic Division, and do an off-season Atlantic Division rundown. When we get back from the tunes, you're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. We'll be right back, folks.
without you. It's a good life. It's a good life. It's a good life. Things you take more than you give, running around trying to find what's left of me. Running around trying to find what's left of me. I'm doing just fine here, though I am broken still. I'll find a way to climb up out of the snow. I'm taking bets on what happens next for us. One day you will find that I'm doing fine without you. 'Cause you take more than you give. I'm running around trying to find my pieces. You take more than you give. Running around trying to find what's left of you. Take more than you give. I'm running around trying to find my pieces. You take more than you give. Running around trying to find what's left of me. Running around trying to find what's left of me. Running around trying to find what's left of me. I'm taking bets on what happens next for us. 'Cause you take more than you give. I'm running around trying to find my pieces. You take more than you give. Running around trying to find what's left. 'Cause you take more than you give. I'm running around trying to find my pieces. You take more than you give. Running around trying to find what's left of you. Take more than you give. I'm running around trying to find my pieces. You take more than you give. Running around trying to find what's left of me.
You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. Remember that this is brought to you by CG Imaging, and what do? Well, they take your ideas and they bring them to life with 3D realistic animation. Maybe you're trying to sell an idea to your boss, and your ideas and your sketches just aren't doing the trick. Go to CG Imaging. They'll make it look real. Maybe you're trying to sell a product to a customer and you're trying to show them what your product will look like in their space. CG Imaging can make it look like it's there. Maybe you're starting a business and you need a logo. Well, they designed our logo and they also designed the header for our website. So go to their website, cg-imaging.com, CG Imaging, virtually creating reality. And at this time, we are joined in the studio by Mr. Monty Broadus, the sportologist, to help us go down the NBA road. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Outstanding. Steve is back among the living, so that's a good sign, theoretically.
I am the living dead. Good to have you back, man.
Yes, it's good to be back, man. I didn't know you was doing your best impression of Walking Dead, man.
No, I had the flu and then I threw my back out, so it was a double dose of old man fever last week.
Have you ever dry heaved so bad you threw your back out?
Yes.
You threw your back out, man. You gotta stop hanging. You gotta stop hanging from chandeliers and stuff, man. You're not as young as you used to be.
I know. I can't help it. Chandeliers, they're so tempting, you know?
I think you have to work on your body position when you heave. You know, you have to make sure that you're, not. It's like when you lift something heavy.
We're going down a road.
You got to make sure you're lifting with your legs. You got to make sure that your body's in proper position. Trust me, from somebody who's been hungover more than they want to admit, you have to have your head in the proper position so that when your body lurches, it doesn't wrench your back like that.
Well, you got your head in the proper position.
Yeah, all right, anyway, okay. So. We're getting very close to the beginning of training camp in the NBA.
Yes.
The weather, well, except for the last 2 days, here anyway, has started to cool down. It's going to be 57 degrees tomorrow. And
can't wait.
When I think indoors, I start thinking basketball. So why don't we start with, the team that has made the biggest splash in the Atlantic Division, and that would be the Brooklyn Nets. Monty, what's your take on what they've done in the offseason?
I think the Brooklyn Nets, man, have done the best that they could. I mean, going and basically taking a ton of players from a division rival, that's always something to be able to lick your chops at. But at the same time, I mean, if we were talking about 5 years ago, this would probably be one of the best starting lineups in the history of basketball, just because of what Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett has put together as far as over their entire careers. But unfortunately, man, we are dealing with Geritol and Ben Gay commercials out of the Brooklyn Nets. I'm pretty sure that they'll be sponsors for this team. But assembling the lineup that they have, man, it can really go either way, man. I mean, I was just frankly disappointed in Darren Williams. When he moved to the Nets, I really just expected a lot more from him. Before he was in the conversation for one of the top 5 point guards, when he was out there playing in Utah, but kind of took a step back, man. He kind of got selfish, started shooting a lot more. He's capable of double-digit assists, but, at the same time being on that Nets roster, he really didn't have the personnel, man, to get that, so he became selfish and started shooting. You started getting that, coach killer kind of reputation, man, and that's just not something to have when it comes to the NBA. Them adding Jason Kidd at the head coach position has always been just one of those hot button topics when it came up. I've talked to a lot of people. Some people have thought that it could go either way. To me, I think that's probably not the best move, because there were some other capable head coaches out there that have done it before, but I wouldn't say that it's the worst move, just because Kidd definitely knows basketball. Being a point guard, you have to be a coach on the floor. But then to assemble him with such a veteran group that pretty much can kind of run themselves, it's not going to be the toughest gig for him, I don't think, other than the fact that there's going to be so much pressure on him to get the job done. Then you got Brook Lopez, who was arguably the second or third best center in the league, definitely super offensive, but always had injury concerns. And, of course, his rebounds and blocks are down. He's just not that kind of center, and you want to see more of that from a 7-footer when it comes to this league. There's definitely some question marks on this team, but being in the Atlantic Division, their record last year was 49-33. Kind of had them projected around the 50 mark. Not too much better, but still going to be in the playoffs. And I kind of project them to get bounced kind of early. But it could go either way. What do you guys think?
Well, no, see, I think you said it perfectly when you said they did the best they could, because they did need to improve in a lot of areas, and they did. But for how long is this improvement going to last? Because Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett are in their late 30s, maybe a year, 2 at best. Jason Terry as well on the bench coming. He's probably going to be the 6th man. They're all up there. So you got to wonder, A, are they going to be able to last 2 seasons? But then B, are they even going to make it through this entire season healthy? Which you got to think they might be in a position where Jason Kidd says, hey, let's try to cut your time down a little bit. But then you take out Garnett and Pierce and you put in like Evans and Kirilenko, it brings you back down to the problems they had last year, which is they don't have the depth. And I'm hopeful because it is a very powerful starting five, and I'm just very skeptical on if they are going to be healthy. Because I mean, Garnett is my age, and we all just discussed I farted the other day and threw out my back. So how is somebody that's had the abuse of 20 years now almost in the league, how's his body going to hold up in a new system on a new team with new expectations? I don't know how it's going to work out.
I look at the Nets, and I can't put my finger on what it is about Brook Lopez. He's a 7-footer. He's 265 pounds, so he's a little light for what I think a 7-footer should be. But I cut my teeth with, I don't want to cut my teeth. I was in my mid-20s, but I think of Shaq when I think 7-footers. And anybody that doesn't fit that 7 foot, 300 pound, 3% body fat mold, I think is light. So that's probably my problem right there with Brook Lopez. With Garnett and Pierce, are they the kind of players, do they have the kind of mindset where they can realize that this is Darren Williams' team? You know, Joe Johnson can get a little streaky at the 2 guard. So to me, this is going to come down to really on the offensive side, Darren Williams and Paul Pierce. And you know what I mean? However, Jason Kidd decides to orchestrate his flow here. His top 2 offensive threats are those 2 guys. So it'll be very interesting to see them. If Paul Pierce if Pierce manages to play at even 85 to 90% of what he normally is, that's still going to be pretty good with the amount of people that they have around him. And you still have Jason Terry coming off the bench. You have Reggie Evans, who I think should be first in line for HGH testing. He's back there on the bench too. Andrei Kirilenko comes in. Interesting Russia connection with the owner, but that's just me. And Soviet Union basket shoots you.
Wow.
But yeah, sorry, I had to go there.
Very Ivan Drago of you.
I'm going to have to just watch this team in the preseason and try to get a feel for what this team is going to do. But again, like we see in other sports, you can't just put names on a court or a field and expect it to just work. You know what I mean? And I don't know if a first-year head coach, even though it is Jason Kidd, and he does have some kind of political capital, being a point guard and having won a championship and played in a couple different spots. I don't know if a rookie head coach is really the right fit for this type of amalgamated roster.
I'm wondering if they're hoping for the same kind of genie in the bottle success Boston had when they brought in the Big Three. Because it's, everyone only thought that would last a couple seasons. So
yeah, but you know what? When they made that trade, Doc was already the head coach for a year or two, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So you had some kind of consistency. You know what I mean? Here you're starting.
Well, the biggest thing too, man, is they brought a ton of people that had the right mesh. I mean, Rondo wasn't where he was at the time. But he was kind of relied on as not a primary guy, but he was more of just an assist and let them guys do their own thing. Darren Williams in his own right feels that he's an all-star. Joe Johnson feels he's an all-star. He's used to jacking up a ton of shots. Paul Pierce feels Paul Pierce has the body of work and has been an all-star. Kevin Garnett as well. The only one on the starting 5 that would actually defer is Brook Lopez, and I feel that at this point in his career, if he's going to do anything to kind of separate himself as far as all-time centers in the league right now, not all-time centers overall. Don't get me wrong. Don't expel me, guys. But but in the league right now, he cannot defer right now. I mean, the guy he's capable of putting up 20 points a game easily on the offensive side. But also the peculiar thing about this team too is that they have a stretch of back-to-backs that is late in the season. I believe it's like somewhere around 21 back-to-backs. And it's in the second half. And when you got vets like this that may need to sit or, may need to rest that second back-to-back or, Jason Kidd's going to have enough experience to be able to manage these guys' minutes and be able to sit people when he needs to sit them, sub in, and like you guys brought up, they don't have a ton of depth here. So having 21 back-to-backs in the second half of the season isn't the best time to have those back-to-backs. Mm-hmm. So it could really, really mess with either their seed position, if they're doing that well, or it can mess with the fact of them just trying to get into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on as well.
All right, let's stay in the Empire State and jump over to the New York Knicks. Some new faces suiting up this year. Andrea Bargnani comes over to compete with Amari Stoudemire for playing time at the 4. Tyson Chandler still listed as the center on the depth chart. Meta World Peace comes over to be Carmelo Anthony's backup. What's the worst that could happen? And then the big draft pick, Tim Hardaway Jr. out of Michigan. Who knows what his role is really going to be. J.R. Smith will be recovering from surgery in the offseason. So what's your take on the Knicks? Is it they last year was kind of like a return to relevance. 54 wins last year. So do you see them building on that, or do they take a step back this year?
I really see them taking a step back. I mean, they went 54-28 last year. I actually see them pulling in between the 40 to 48 game type range, depending on the way the ball bounces. And really, I see this team kind of getting softer, man. I mean, it's just really, they're really reaching for whatever they can. I mean, a couple of years ago, them adding Meta World Peace, when his name was actually Ron Artest, I would have actually taken that seriously. But come on, man, the guy's name is Meta World Peace. I can't take that guy seriously anymore. He needs to go and coach the North Korea team with Rodman right now, because that's how serious I'm taking him right now. Adding Bargnani to this team, yeah, in essence, it is a good move, just because there's just no centers out there really to add to it. We know what Bargnani can bring. When he played with Toronto, he definitely put up a ton of points at times. But then he also started to kind of wither away towards the latter years of him being out there. And, with him playing with Melo, there's really not – I mean, the biggest thing with this team last year is that when they distributed the ball, they were great. When they didn't, they were horrible. And I don't really see this team distributing like they used to. Adding Tim Hardaway – yeah, he has the name and everything like that. Don't know what that will really translate to on the court at all. But I just don't see this team, really doing too much. I mean, you got J.R. Smith, that's waking and baking in his car before practices now, and and then he's high going into press conferences, basically, proclaiming that they're going to win the championship and stuff. I mean, whatever that guy's smoking on, I'm pretty sure that, a lot of other people want that too. Not saying that the sportologist condones drugs. Please don't put that out there. But he's smoking on some pretty good stuff to sit up there and try to say that the Knicks are going to win a championship. It's just absolutely bogus. Carmelo Anthony, unfortunately, is that one pick out of the 2003 draft that still has not won a ring yet. It's just kind of, disturbing that Darko has a ring before Melo does.
Yes.
So nobody would have ever thought that, if we'd have put our bets down, I'm pretty sure we'd have all lost our money on that one. But I really don't see Melo really getting anything. I see him taking off after this season to probably go towards the Lakers or somebody else. But the Knicks, at first, they did seem exciting. When they added him, they added Omari. But it just, man, truthfully has just become a complete disaster. And I really don't see it translating into anything else.
I'm looking at Carmelo Anthony's shot chart right now on Vorped.com from last year.
It's got to be all over the place.
Well, I'm looking at, because I'm thinking you're bringing in Bargnani. Okay, so he's not a back to the basket type of player. He's not a post center. He's an away from the basket kind of almost like a Nowitzki, but no one shoots like no 7-footer shoots like Nowitzki. But he's kind of he is that European style center. He's European. And I'm looking at where the majority of Melo's shots came from, and one right at the rim is by far the majority. But he took 159 shots from the if you're facing the basket, the right baseline inside the 2-point arc. So that to me is where I kind of think of Bargnani as operating. So I have big question marks about how these pieces all fit together. Well,
they don't fit at all. I mean, you have a team who's based on two players. Their foundation is based on two players. And you saw that last year, and that was really Carmelo Anthony and J.R. Smith. And you have two arrogant ball hogs who, like you were saying, it's never going to mesh with those two because they are never going to pass the ball in that situation where it's either heave up a tough shot that only 1 in a million is going to make or pass it to the open man. They will always heave up that tough shot. And that's the problem. That's why they will never, ever succeed. And it doesn't matter who you put around them. As long as you base it off those guys, you will never succeed. I mean, you look at Miami, what made them successful is on every night a different guy stepped up to the plate. And when they did, the other guys kind of backed off and let him do his thing. And that's kind of, that's the team that needs to happen in New York, and it never will, ever.
So now I'm looking at Bargnani's shot chart from last year. Granted, he was with the Raptors. Right? He took the most shots from the left baseline 17-foot range area, okay, inside the 3-point arc.
Okay.
And that was his second favorite zone. I'm sorry, I take that back. That was actually, I'm sorry, I'm looking at it now. His third favorite zone. He took the most shots from behind the 3-point line on the right wing.
Really?
49 shots. Only hit 9 of them, but took 49. So, again, all over the place. This team is just all over the place. I don't know. I tend to agree with you, Monty. I think that it's going to be time for revolution in Madison Square Garden.
I think that you can make the argument that they're easily the 5th best team, maybe even the 6th in the Eastern Conference. Last year they were up there in the number 2 spot right behind Miami, and they, like Monty said, they're going to take a huge step back.
Monty, does Mike Woodson finish the year?
That is a very good question. I believe he does because he has a mean goatee.
And how do you fire somebody with a mean goatee? You just don't.
You can't fire somebody with a thick goatee like that, man. That's a mean goatee.
You have to watch Breaking Bad. You never mess with a guy with a mean goatee.
Yeah, he's got the Eisenberg goatee
That's right,
going.
he does.
He really does. All right, wow. This is the fastest 20 minutes I've ever had. So let's keep going. Boston Celtics. What's your take on them?
Oh wow, this team they finished the season at 41-40. Definitely going to take a huge step back. Lost a ton of core players: Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry. And guess who's there to step up for him, guys? Chris Humphreys. Did he keep his name or did he? I thought in the divorce he got to keep the Kardashian, right?
Well, no, he got to keep.
No, he just got to keep the STDs he got from her.
Okay. Keith Bogus and Gerald Wallace with Rajon Rondo. But at the end of the day, Rajon Rondo is recovering from his ACL injury. I really feel with this team that's on the court, the guys should actually be kind of smart and play the Derrick Rose role as far as trying to come back. And then the rest of the roster, man, rounds out with Jeff Green, Jared Sullinger, Avery Bradley. I mean, nothing's exciting about Boston. They're definitely in store for some dark days ahead. They'll be heading for the lottery and trying to pick up a star guy to come back there and kind of take the. I see them picking up a star guy from the draft and maybe going through that. You remember when they picked up Paul Pierce and he was their lone star for a long time before they got some people around him. So I'm pretty sure they'll pick up a star in the draft and kind of just have him play the Paul Pierce role for a while, unless they keep Rondo there as well. So I'm projecting, man, even a Rondo trade probably, just because he won't shut up and he'll probably just be crying the whole dang on season until they trade him. So this team is definitely, and I'm sorry for all the Boston fans. Well, really, I'm not, but I'm going to say it just to be nice.
You know, Steve's,
Thanks, Monty.
You know Steve's a Celtics fan, right?
Oh, my bad.
I said enough crap about Cleveland 2 weeks ago that it's okay.
And honestly, Steve, all you got to do is say Brandon Whedon and just move on. So.
Oh, you had to go there, Keith.
Sorry, I got to work it in somewhere. All right, back on the NBA track here.
Boston's in full rebuild. They're going to be nothing for 3 years.
Does the term "rigging for Wiggins" mean anything to you? Andrew Wiggins is going to be available next week or next year, supposedly. Everyone's assuming. So
next week.
It'll be rigging for Wiggins. I saw that on Twitter the other day. I can't take credit for it. Yeah. So, if there was anything, that trade to the Nets was the proverbial white flag in Boston, saying that it's not going to get better, so we're going to get worse and go through it right now.
Which I still give them credit, man. It's pulling the Band-Aid off. Just get it done, get it over with, start over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm totally drawing a blank right now. Who did they hire to be their coach?
Oh, that guy is like 36.
I'm totally drawing a blank.
God, has it been that long since I've...
Wow. Yeah, it was definitely...
I'm trying to look for it now, too, and I can't... Oh, Brad Stevens. That's right. They hired him from Butler.
Thank you.
That's right.
He's like 14 years old, right?
Yeah. He worked at Butler. What's the worst that could happen?
Maybe that's the thing, Dale. You have a rebuilding team. You have a young team. Get a guy that was coaching people their age, just last year. Get somebody young that was in college, Maybe it'll work. Probably won't, but could it be worse than Patino?
At least Patino shaved because he had to. This guy doesn't have any facial hair. Anyway, let's move on. The Philadelphia 76ers, who were probably the most disappointing team, mostly because of the whole Andrew Bynum fiasco. But Monty, he's your problem now. So Philadelphia goes through. They end up losing Doug Collins. They wait forever to make a coaching decision and settle on Brett Brown, first-time head coach, which is good because this roster is suspect to say the least. What's your take?
Well, probably one team that we can pick in the NBA that'll be worse than the Boston Celtics. But they finished 34-48 last season. This year, man, I definitely see them putting up competition with Boston for Wiggins. I can't really peg this team, man, to win more than 20 games. Might be even less than that. And they'll be worse than my Cavaliers, so thank God. Yeah, this team is horrible, man. All they really have left is Thaddeus Young and Evan Turner. Evan Turner is near and dear to my heart, man, coming from the Buckeyes and everything like that. I just wanted to see him translate into a better, more polished player, and he's always shown those spotlights, man, but he just won't take the step and just take it over, as far as being that bona fide guy. They got a couple of lottery picks up there with Michael Carter Williams. And then, of course, they would go and get rid of Andrew Bynum and then bring in a younger Andrew Bynum with Nerlens Noel. So that was always good. So they definitely have some issues and stuff like that there. If Noel can come back healthy, still don't think he'll do too much, man. He's very undersized, very well malnourished. And I'm actually going to throw out something for you guys that I think Noel should do. Tyler Zeller, he actually gained 20 pounds from the Cavaliers by being on the Krispy Kreme diet, guys.
Wow.
He actually gave credit to Krispy Kreme for that.
Nice.
So I'm gonna throw out to Noel, man, to get on the Krispy Kreme diet as well. That's just completely horrible and awesome at the same time, but I guess it works. So, but yeah, this roster is just devoid of talent, man. Just horrible. So I don't really see anything from this team. Definitely some easy wins for people. Definitely good times for Kevin Garnett and them to sit out and still get a good win against this team. They'll help out, people that's going for the title. So other than that, man, it's really not too much. Just watch out for them to see if they get the first-round draft pick, man.
I never thought that I would say in 2013 that a team is Jason Richardson's team, but looking at the offensive options here,
I feel bad for
he's
the
the
guy.
scorer.
I've always liked Jason Richardson.
I
feel bad that he's stuck on this team.
I like Evan Turner. He
Right, I like Evan Turner too.
But he put up 13 points a game last year. Again, he had Drew and everything, but Drew was really Drew could score, but
This could be the year of Kwame Brown, though.
no. We're just on that.
Wow.
I was
that-
smiling when I said it. I couldn't even say it with a straight face.
How many teams is Kwame Brown?
You really couldn't.
How many teams has Kwame Brown made better just by being traded away from them?
Oh, God. Every team.
I was gonna say definitely the Bobcats.
And the Lakers is when they traded Kwame Brown in the Pau Gasol trade. He leaves the Lakers, and all of a sudden they win 2 titles. So,
Man, this is his 7th.
Sometimes you're that guy. Sometimes you're just that guy, that trade bait, man. Everybody has to have a role in the NBA.
all right. And the last team in the Atlantic Division, we're running out of time here, the Toronto Raptors. Not your father's Toronto Raptors, Rudy Gay's Toronto Raptors. Now they add Kyle Lowry at the point. DeMar DeRozan, who I think is a little underrated at the 2 guard. If Amir Johnson can, put things together. But then they also added Tyler Hansbrough to the 4, the psycho eyes, with Jonas Valanciunas. I totally butchered that. Jonas is playing center for Toronto, 2011 first-round pick. Is this a Raptors team that could sneak up on people?
First of all, I'd like to say, when you said that guy's name, you sound like you just had a mouth full of spit in your mouth.
I felt like I had a mouthful of spit.
But yeah, I definitely see this team taking a step forward. Just by, dare I say, talent around them. Wow. Definitely didn't see that coming from Toronto. But yeah, having Jonas there, Rudy Gay, DeRozan, and with this team, with this daggone division just being so freaking weak, I definitely see them easily being second behind the Nets. I can kind of see that, seeing them battle with the Knicks a little bit.
Oh, you're picking the Raptors for second early on?
I really have them, man, being. I don't know, man. They could be second. I think they can challenge the Knicks.
You're waffling.
Yeah, I think they could, man. I really do. They have some decent players there, man, and like I said, Kyle Lowry being there, he's pretty good, and Jonas and Rudy Gay stays healthy. I mean, they could actually be pretty decent, man, and be challenging for as far as playoff wise, man, anywhere between I would say as high as the 5th seed. I mean, if you really just want to be bold with it, bold prediction.
And they acquired the Deadeye Steve Novak to play the Steve Taylor role and just shoot jumpers from the parking lot.
Hey, someone's got to do it.
So.
It's not going to be Hansbrough, that's for sure.
No.
Which I still can't believe Indiana let him go. I mean, he is the stereotypical Indiana player.
Just gritty, just not the best or the largest amount of talent, but just somehow makes it happen.
He's the new Rick Smits, and the fact that they let him go, I'm just surprised by that.
You said Smits.
Yeah, I call him the garbage man. He just does all the dirty work, baby.
Yeah. He's like a Bill Lambert, pretty much.
Absolutely. All right, his name is Monty. He's the Sportologist, the Twitter handle @thesportologist. Thanks for joining us. Come back next week and we'll do the Central Division. Sound good?
Hey, it definitely sounds good. That's my division. Let's do it.
Oh, wait, maybe. I'll promise. I'll have to we should make a bet on the over-under on the amount of Brandon Whedon jokes I work into that show.
Oh, Christ. I don't even think
Oh, my gosh. Are you going to really do that? I really hope we win our second game just so I can rub it in you guys.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, it's NFL time with Jim Saranteas, the he's not the sportologist. He's the fantasy Greek. It's time to take a break. You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio.
Baby, you're a mystery. Tell me what's a girl gotta do. Looking at the history doesn't seem to give any clue. Just when I think I understand it all, you seem to unravel some more. Ooh, I never know nobody like you. Ooh, now I know you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing on confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're a riddle. I'm caught up in the middle of you. I'm trying to think bigger, but I can't seem to figure it through. I wanna make it better, but now I'm scared of looking a fool. Oh, baby, no, I've never been very good at playing it cool. Just when I think I understand it all, I find I know nothing at all. I never know nobody like you. Now I know you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're an enigma. Baby, you're an enigma. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you.
Clearly something foul has got a hold of me, pin me to the ground and sank its teeth in me, injecting and infecting every vein with hateful venom, and it slowly took control of my thoughts and ambitions, my love for musicians, and you think you're the antidote. You've got it all wrong, because it's got this hold on me. And girl, you took a toll on me. Surely Dr. Jekyll wasn't always mad. Once upon a time he was a nice young man.
Ready? 1. You will do this 4 times with the left, 4 with the right, then 8 times with both, then repeat.
You're listening to 87 Live on 87 Sports Fans Radio. As we head into the NFL portion of the show, we are joined by Jim Saranteas, the Fantasy Greek, website, thefantasygreek.com. Follow him on Twitter, @thefantasygreek. Welcome to the show, Mr. Saranteas.
Keith, Steve, happy to be here. What's going on, fellas?
Oh,
Day in paradise, sir.
It sounded like a great little bit you had with Monty before I came on. You guys were just rocking it.
yeah.
It was fun. It was fun. We haven't talked NBA in quite a while, so it was nice.
We haven't had any meaningful NBA talk in a
Yeah.
while. Now we're getting into the prediction time and everything like that, and baseball postseason. We're going to probably have to seriously think about a 3-hour show. But
Well, because we're only about, we're a month away from our NBA preview show?
yeah, we got to schedule that.
Yeah.
God, isn't that amazing? We're talking,
It's ridiculous.
and soon we're going to be talking hockey too.
No,
we never talk hockey.
No, we never talk hockey.
No hockey.
You talk hockey, but we.
Yeah, you talk hockey.
Okay.
Off the air, but I mean, that's good. Just kidding.
All right, let's go through last week's game, starting with the kickoff game on Thursday night. Denver 49, Baltimore 27. I don't know about what you guys, but what I saw was a Baltimore team that kind of breezed down the field on an opening drive, and I think maybe got a little overconfident. And I saw a Denver team that just took about a half to wake up, and then once the second half came on and Peyton Manning started to get on fire, you could just see the Ravens were all thinking the same thing.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
And then it was all over after that.
Oh,
So
that's a stretch.
what do you guys? What's your takeaway on that game?
I mean, you know, the Denver Broncos are a scoring machine. And I'm saying to myself, who is going to stop these guys? Peyton Manning threw 7 touchdowns. And any one of those wide receivers is a potential offensive weapon, a la Denard Robinson. Well, actually, not a la Denard Robinson. They're just offensive weapons. And, you know, I don't think there's going to be anybody that can stop them. They didn't even need their running backs in this game.
Yeah.
And for fantasy, my take on it is you almost have to start everybody on the Broncos who's a receiver. And for now, you avoid every single running back on that team because that's a mess.
You look at Noshawn Moreno led the team in carries, and Monty Ball looked like he was an afterthought. You know, and Ronnie Hillman was supposedly the lead back. I agree with you, Jim. Just avoid it at all costs.
See, that's the only thing that worries me about Denver is, I mean, how many teams in the past have proved that you can have this unstoppable passing attack, but to get to that last level, to get that Super Bowl, you have to have some kind of a running game. Remember that season that Green Bay almost went undefeated and they lost in the first round of the playoffs because they had 0 running attack, but they had one of the best passing attacks in the NFL. And that was my only concern with Denver. It's their running attack was that anemic. What were you saying, Jim? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to chime in, but
No, that's fine.
you know, the thing is I think they do have a running attack. I just don't think they need to use it. I mean, it just was amazing to see that offense went without really needing their running backs, and I think Noshawn Moreno would be absolutely fine as a running back when the time comes. But I just why bother? I mean, that offense is just humming.
All right, so some names that pop out from this game, and I'll just buy or sell. Really quick answers: Julius Thomas,
Start him always.
Marlon Brown.
Up and comer.
Okay, I just want to get your take on those guys.
Roster him if you can.
Okay. Next up on the docket, we'll stick with our favorites here. The Bears beat the Bengals 24-21 in a game. If you're a Bears fan, you're encouraged that your team actually went into the half and made adjustments and came out and seemed to apply those. What do you guys take away from this game?
Well, I mean, I look at the Bears, and the first half they definitely looked like a team that didn't quite know what they were doing offensively, and they are in a new system. They are trying to work out all of the kinks. But in that second half, they were clicking a lot better, and it makes me feel positive going into this this next week, because they're going into a game against the Vikings, and they're going to be at home, and they're going against a Vikings offense that looked just awful. And with what Tillman did last week and the secondary, it's like they've gotten right back onto that bandwagon they were last year as far as being able to intercept balls and create turnovers. I think it's encouraging to see this defense carrying the offense once again, but the offense looking like it will be able to improve enough to potentially live up to the potential that they didn't live up to last year and be able to take over and make Chicago a more balanced, if not offensive-heavy team. That's what I took from that game.
What I took from it was that the changes that the Bears made on the offensive line actually worked.
Mm-hmm.
There was not a single sack in that game by the Bills. That is one tough defense that the Bears beat. I think they're for real. I think they could play within the division, and right now the arrow's pointing up for them.
And I got to give Cutler credit. The first thing he said to the media after the game is he spent about 3 minutes kissing the offensive line's ass. Because you're right, Jim. How many games did he not get sacked last year? I can't even think of one where he didn't get at least one sack.
No, he's usually getting knocked around like a punching bag. But I got a conversation with people at the day job, and they're like, "Well, Forte had only 50 yards on 20 carries." I'm like, okay, but that's a good defense. Of course you want more if you're Chicago out of your running back, but that's a good defense up there. You take more. I put more stock in the fact that Jay Cutler wasn't sacked than I do Matt Forte only averaging 2.6 yards per carry.
Yeah, I think most people don't know, because they obviously don't listen to our show, about how good Cincinnati's defense actually is. And they think Cincinnati Bengals are like, oh, well, they have good offense, but I don't think people realize how good their defense was. And their defense is really solid this year. And like you said, they look good in that game. It's just Chicago was able to make the plays they needed to win.
They're still taking the ball away. Some things never change.
Yep.
All right, Jim, A.J. Green, start him or sit him? I'm kidding. That was just a joke.
Wait, trick question?
Yeah, I was just kidding. Just a joke. All right, then we'll go with the local hometown team. A little scare in Patriots land. The Bills leading until late, and then end up winning 23-21. To me, I saw Tom Brady really missing some targets, and it'll be an adjustment period. But I think the Patriots will be fine. But Brady's really going to have his work cut out for him. What do you guys think?
Well, I'll be honest. My biggest surprise this week was how impressed I was with E.J. Manuel. He did have some shaky throws, and he was a little rough at times. But at the end of that game, he was making some beautiful passes, making some really good decisions. And, a lot of people, especially my nephew who drafted C.J. Spiller with the third pick in his draft, I wasn't surprised to see Fred Jackson actually. I have always been kind of a supporter of his, and see him pretty much show the fact that maybe not talent-wise, but at least drive, he's still the best running back on that team. But I have to say, if I were the Bills, I would be ecstatic with what I saw out of E.J. Manuel. Like, I thought he was really a solid quarterback that week.
Yeah, and I agree with Steve wholeheartedly. It's something I've been talking about E.J. Manuel since I saw him in January. The arrow's pointing up for him. He can only get better. The thing that, in fantasy football is going to drive people nuts, and I keep being asked about Stevie Johnson, and quite frankly, I think you have to sort of sit him and avoid him until he gets into a rhythm with E.J. Manuel. If he didn't have that scoring touchdown, nobody would have been happy who played him in fantasy football. The whole C.J. Spiller should be solid. For Jackson, it was nice to see him contribute to the offense. I think a lot of people were worried that he might suddenly take over for C.J. Spiller, and that just is not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's very positive. And then the Patriots, you guys have already said it, they looked shaky. There's some things that are misfiring, and I think just playing together is going to help them.
Brady chucking the ball. Again, he was trailing for a lot of it, but 52 attempts. I don't see that as a winning formula, but fantasy owners there, Stephen Ridley. Does Belichick hold grudges and bench Stephen Ridley for those fumbles?
I don't think he can. I mean, he's going to have it. It's either him or LeGarrette Blount. Bolden actually was on the injury report with a knee issue, and I mean, he wasn't really a heavy hitter to begin with. So unless he's suddenly healthy, and I think we're going to see Ridley this weekend. That's what I expect, and I could see LeGarrette Blount getting a nice little piece of action.
And I hate to say this because I thought he did a great job, but the best thing that could have ever happened to Ridley is Vereen being injured and not being able to play against the Jets, because that's giving him that second chance, which, Keith, I think you're right. If Vereen was healthy, I think he would be the starting running back tomorrow against the Jets. But with him out, Ridley's the guy, and I think he should thank his lucky stars that he's getting the second opportunity.
Agreed. The Dolphins go into Cleveland, and Jim, we talked off the air last week about how much stock I was putting in Cleveland's defense, and I think that they did as much as they possibly could, but they're just on the field for, I don't know, I guess it was only 7 more snaps, but it seemed like forever, waiting for the Cleveland offense to do something, anything. But Miami was the better team. I picked Cleveland to win this game, but Miami came out and they didn't play a stellar game by any stretch of the imagination, but they did what they needed to do.
I think the big storyline from that game was the Miami Dolphins defense. Probably undrafted in most fantasy football leagues. I think they're a must-add. I think they're tremendously good. That is not a bad offensive line that the Browns have, and yet they sacked Whedon, 3 times or 6 times? It was just, he was under fire.
6 sacks.
6 sacks, and I think 3 picks.
And 3 picks.
Jordan Cameron is just a stud. He's a guy that, I think is going to be a matchup nightmare for anybody that's defending him. But that Dolphins defense, I like them, and I even like them this weekend against the Colts.
And they're really tough on the run. I mean, they held Richardson to only 47 yards.
47 yards.
Which is incredible. I mean, it's not alone. There are a lot of running backs, really great running backs this week that did not live up to expectations at all. But I wasn't expecting that. I'll be honest. And I actually feel bad. I told some people it might be smart to start Richardson because even though Miami's defense has improved, he's still a beast, and I kind of got yelled at for that. So.
What kind of flow do you get in, though, when you only carry the ball 13 times? I mean, yeah. I just talked about Brady throwing 52. And I don't agree with that. I sure as heck don't agree with Brandon Whedon throwing the ball 53 times.
Yeah, agreed.
And I know it, you get up to the line and maybe there were some changed calls and everything like that, and it's not that simple as just, it's not a game of Madden where you pick a run play and just do it. I understand that, but 53 times, 53 to 13, and the Dolphins put 10 points up in the fourth quarter, so it's not like the game was decided early. I just think that there's some room to improve there. For the Dolphins, no running back really separates himself. Daniel Thomas, 8 carries for 14 yards. Lamar Miller, 10 carries for a measly 3 yards. What's your take on the Dolphins' running situation, Jim?
Don't give up on it just yet. Lamar Miller's the man. We saw what he could do in the preseason. This, to flip things around, was a tough Browns defense. Well, like you pointed out, Keith, they're going to struggle if they're on the field too long. That offense really has to start taking care of things and really control the time of possession and the time between splitting time on the field with the defense.
Absolutely. All right, the Falcons traveled to New Orleans, and the Saints pull it out at home, 23-17. The return of Sean Payton was just too much. I mean, on paper, I think the teams are pretty. They got 2 different styles of play, but as far as overall talent, I think they're pretty evenly matched. But the New Orleans Saints, with Payton returning, just too much at home, and they held the ball for 35 minutes too. That didn't hurt either. So, what did you guys take away from this game?
Well, for me, and this is kind of going to your Richardson argument, Keith. When you have Steven Jackson, he averaged 7 yards a carry. He only rushed it 11 times. it just didn't seem like Atlanta had a good enough balance on offense. And when you play a team like New Orleans, who came out and, I mean, they look like New Orleans from the Super Bowl year. Like, that offense looks like it is potentially going to, start clicking the way it did. I mean, you look at Breeze, I was surprised he only had 357 yards. It seemed like he was throwing it all over the place. So to me, I'm kind of shocked that Atlanta lost, but as well as the Saints played, I'm really not that surprised because they are only a year removed from, whooping the Falcons before. So it's kind of nice to see the Saints back. Last year was a weird anomaly. You had all the players, but you just didn't have that same fire. So it's nice to see them back.
My take on this game is I was definitely stunned. I was stunned by Roddy White at the last minute. The announcement being made that he had a high ankle sprain. I mean, he's been injured for the past 2 or 3 weeks. I think the Falcons not having him on the field really made a difference in this game. I mean, they said he was a decoy. Okay, so he's a decoy, meaning, they just didn't want him wide open for them to throw the ball to. Mm-hmm. The fact that none of the supposed NFL insiders knew anything about this for all this time is really shocking. And, I think it's upsetting to not only the fantasy football world, but how about fans in general? Mm-hmm. This was just something that there was no reason to keep this from anybody. The Falcons are missing something without him on the field. I'm concerned that this could linger. I think they've got a tough game this coming weekend against the Rams. The Saints, I'd like to see their defense this weekend do well. I thought they did well this weekend. I mean, the Falcons' offense was not clicking. Even though Steven Jackson put up, I want to say, was roughly 120 all-purpose yards. He didn't get into the end zone once. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Steven Jackson with 77 yards on the ground and another 45 receiving. Targeted 8 times, the second most targets on the team. So that's you tip your hat to the New Orleans defense for forcing Matt Ryan to, he did target Julio Jones 9 times. He had 7 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown, although Julio Jones did lose a fumble.
Mm-hmm. I would also say what angers me a little bit is the Falcons coaching staff needs to give a little more credit to Harry Douglas. I think he's a better wide receiver than people have allowed him to be.
Oh, yeah.
So, they need to sit Roddy White. If he's got a high ankle sprain and they go the way of Michael Turner by sort of forcing this, he's not going to be the same player the rest of the season. They need to sit him down, let him rest until he is right, even if that takes a month. Get your other guys in and play ball.
Yeah. I mean, Douglas was the leading wide receiver last week, 4 receptions, 93 yards. I mean, that's almost 24 yards a catch. How can you not, like you said, if Roddy White's not 100%, how can you not go to this guy?
Well,
He obviously showed he can hold the weight.
But the point is, get another guy in there.
Yeah.
I mean, the longer you put this off, the more somebody else is missing playing time and developmental time, which is what you're going to need right now. Mm-hmm. Heck, go pick up the phone, call Brandon Lloyd, and get him in there.
And again, the game really coming down to an interception at the end of the last Atlanta possession as well. But the 3 possessions before that, 3 plays for -6 yards and a punt, 3 plays for 1 yard and a punt, 5 plays for 22 yards and a punt. That's just not going to get it done. And for a team that, the Falcons are getting to that point where we're kind of waiting for them to take the next step and start, getting to Super Bowls. And games like this make you wonder if it's possible. Not taking nothing away from the Saints. The Saints are a fantastic team, and they're well coached. But if you're going to be that Super Bowl contender, you got to win these games on the road, especially one possession games in the end.
Yeah, and kind of going with what Jim said is they're playing against a scrappy Rams team this week. You have a team that everyone's picked to go to the Super Bowl that could very likely start the season 0-2. I mean, it is a good possibility that could happen, which I never would have thought that to start this season.
Mm-hmm. So then we have the Buccaneers at the Jets. Oh, the Buccaneers. Obviously, old news now. Levante David with the just horrible decision to try to push Geno Smith out after he'd already run out. put the Jets in field goal range, and they kicked the winning field goal. Geno Smith, 24-38 for 256 yards. Did get sacked 5 times. Obviously, rookie quarterback, first start. Jim, what's your take on Geno Smith's debut?
I thought it was outstanding. I mean, here's a guy who he gets drafted. I mean, his being drafted was surrounded by controversy. He ends up on the Jets. That's surrounded by controversy. He's immediately his draft stock was immediately surrounded by controversy. This guy has been through the ringer, and yet he comes out in his first game. And yes, he may have been. You said it was 5 times. I thought it was 3. But whatever the case, I mean, he showed some poise. He made some plays. He put up a decent stat line for a rookie, and I'm very encouraged by it. And the protection I thought was pretty good. The parts of the game I saw looked like the offensive line was doing a pretty good job for him. So when the Buccaneers did get to him, I was a little stunned. The Jets have just an array of problems, and they're sort of come across as this ragtag team. But they won the game, and that's all that counts.
Right.
And for the Buccaneers, to me, the big storyline here for them is it's sort of a continuation of last season. They're not winning a game like this that they have to win. I'm encouraged by Vincent Jackson's play. I really thought he would be the one hurt by any shortcomings that befell on Josh Freeman. Didn't happen, so that's good. And, that's about it. I mean, Doug Martin did not have a good game, and I think it's because the Jets actually have a much better defense than anybody has given them credit for.
Well, this is now what teams are going to do with Josh Freeman is they're going to barrel up against the run and dare Josh Freeman to beat him, and he's going to have to do it. But definitely showed some issues.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's a very dysfunctional family down in Tampa. But the Jets, I gotta say, Geno Smith. Next to EJ Manuel, he was a huge surprise and a pleasant surprise. To me, I think the best thing that they could do is they need to get rid of Sanchez right now. Because if Geno Smith goes out to the Patriots right now, like he's proven that he's the guy in the future. He's going to be the future of this team. He's going to be the future quarterback. He has the leadership. He has the skills. But if he goes out and throws a dud in this game against the Patriots, there's going to just be talk about is Sanchez coming in? And the whole circus is going to start again. I think they just need to cut the head off of this. I know it's going to suck with the $8 million they owe to Sanchez, but I think they need to get him out of town. They need to get him away and just give Geno the team and say, go do what you got to do. That's my one real concern coming off of this week.
And the Buccaneers, 13 penalties for 102 yards. When you give another team an entire football field worth of penalties, it makes it very difficult to win. On top of everything else. Let's see, where did we leave off? The most shocking development was how long it took the Pittsburgh Steelers to score in this game. But the Titans come away 16-9. And I'm just pointing out that I did pick the Steelers to go 6-10, and you all called me crazy. But go ahead. A team that
I picked them worse than 6-10. So yeah, you are crazy.
I'm just saying, a team that is going to struggle running the ball, has not typically ran the ball really well the last couple of years, and now they lose Marquise Pouncey for the year up the middle. Roethlisberger takes 5 sacks in this game. If anything, that's kind of Roethlisberger's calling card is his escapability. The Titans hold the ball for 34 minutes and managed to gut one out in Pittsburgh on opening week. What are your thoughts?
All right, well, first off, you were wrong, and I want to point this out, because Pittsburgh scored the first 2 points of the game, Keith.
Their defense scored the first 2 points.
I had to point that out, okay? No, they're a disaster. I think, like you said, with Pouncey gone now, they just don't have any weapons on that team, and Roethlisberger he looked lost. And they have Cincinnati coming up, then Chicago, Minnesota, the Jets, Baltimore, even Oakland, the way they played this week. I mean, their schedule coming up, if they continue to play the way they did, this could be a very, very long season for them. It was pretty sad because Tennessee didn't even look that good. I mean, they looked as good as I thought they would this year, which is not very good at all. I mean, Chris Johnson barely showed up, and their passing game. I mean, their passing game was a little rough. It was a little rough to say the least. I mean, Locker was threw 125 yards, and I think that Pittsburgh is in for a very, 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 very long season.
You know, I think this game was a bigger statement about the Titans' defense than it was necessarily about the Steelers' offense. Mm-hmm. When we were talking about this in the preseason, on paper, the Titans look like a phenomenal unit. But it's just, could they? Because last year, I think they were the unit we talked about. They gave up all these yards and all these bad things, but on the flip side, they had, led in defensive fumble recoveries, I think it was, or interceptions, something like that, where you just kind of had these two different things happening on the field. And they seem to, if it's true that this is really that good of a defense, and we'll know that this weekend, then, wow, that's just a stunner because their offense is in complete disarray with Jake Locker under center. In fact, that's the best thing going on for the Steelers right now is that defense. Mm. And I think that it's amazing that this weekend we'll know more about that defense because they'll be up against the Bengals. But, they did what they were supposed to do. Now, their offense, wow, this was not supposed to happen. Todd Haley's the offensive coordinator. He and his assistants. I don't think this is a player issue. I think this is a coaching issue because this is the kind of thing that should not be happening.
Oh, did we lose Jim?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay, you cut out. Sorry.
This shouldn't be the sort of thing that happens on the field week one to this offense. So I think it falls squarely on the coaches and specifically Todd Haley.
Yeah.
The Vikings at the Lions, kind of a fun game to watch. Adrian Peterson breaks off the big 78-yard run, but then finishes the game with only 93 yards total. Looking at week one, the Lions again showing that they are their own worst enemy. 11 penalties, including the one ugly one with Ndamukong Suh, who was in turn fined $100,000 and is going to appeal that. What do you take from this? Reggie Bush, 21 carries, 90 yards, another 101 yards receiving, and a touchdown.
Well, I think that's one of the worst fallouts that's come from the Suh issues is everyone's talking about that when everyone should be talking about Reggie Bush. Like a lot of people, he's been in the league long enough where you can't really say it was a coming out party, but he's finally on a team that is using him correctly, and he's surrounded by talent, and this is what he can do. I mean, 191 all-purpose yards and a touchdown. I was blown away, but I wasn't that surprised because I know he had the talent, but wow, what a performance. I mean, that was really impressive.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Every week, Steve, you say something that I just couldn't agree with more. And that is exactly it. Everybody should be talking about Reggie Bush. This guy was just off the hook, off the charts. I mean, just amazing, amazing game. I've got him as one of my must-starts this week. I mean, I know it's pretty obvious, but I mean, he's phenomenal. He is on a great team with a lot of other playmakers. In fact, he played so well, Joyke Bell had a great game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean,
he didn't need Kelvin Johnson. Kelvin Johnson put him on the side. Mm-hmm. This whole thing with Ndamukong Suh, I'll say a $100,000 fine was not enough for what had happened. I am a firm believer that all these chop blocks should be illegal in the NFL. It makes absolutely no sense that they want to protect somebody's head but not somebody's knees.
Yep. I
exactly.
agree.
And he was saying, "Oh, well, I was trying to protect my player returning the interception." I was like, wait a second. That offensive lineman probably runs a 5-minute 40. He was not going to catch up to him. There was absolutely 0 point in that hit at all. There was unnecessary, and it was a guy that, I can't remember the offensive lineman's name, but he's a guy that was coming off. I know he had a serious knee injury last year.
He had surgery.
Yeah, and so it's like you have a guy that's coming off an he's rehabbed and brought himself back into the game, and now he's going to get taken out by a cheap shot from a thug. Who I agree with you, $100,000 wasn't enough. There should have been also a suspension. It was despicable. I don't know what they need to do with this guy, but something needs to click because it's not working.
All right, fantasy take, Drake Bell, touchdown only league, or does he have any value?
I think it's touchdown only league. I think he's got value. In general, I would say he's a guy you put on your bench. And potentially, well, for sure, bye-week replacement, but a potential flex play. I want to see him do this a couple more times.
Okay.
Doing it one game is great, but doing it, let's say, 2 out of the next 3 games is much better.
Jerome Simpson, buying or selling?
I'm not, nothing.
140 yards with Christian Ponder at quarterback.
Hey, look, where's Jerome Simpson been all these years?
Mm-hmm. Flipping over defenders.
My issue is Christian Ponder. That offense is exactly what we thought it would be, awful, until they get themselves a good quarterback. Greg Jennings, trade him, sell him. If anybody will take him, I'm staying away from all Vikings except for Adrian Peterson.
Okay. Indianapolis gets a scare from the surprising upstart Oakland Raiders with Terrell Pryor at quarterback. I was impressed by Pryor. 19 of 29 for 217 yards. Did throw 2 picks, but kept them alive. It was the Raiders' leading rusher with 112 yards on the ground. If you're in a league like ours that gets bonuses for hitting over 100 yards, that could be worth enough of stashing them on your bench just to see what happens. My take. What's everyone's thoughts here on this game?
It was heartbreaking because, as Jim and I had discussed, we both have seen a lot of promise in the Colts defense. So, of course, I started the Colts defense in a couple leagues.
Wait. You just reminded me. You brought up a good point. You drafted this defense for this game.
I did. And, well, you know what? I didn't know that they were going to allow Terrell Pryor to come in and be the second coming of Colin Kaepernick. I had no idea that was going to happen. I don't think anyone knew that was going to happen. And I'm an Ohio State fan. I've been watching Terrell Pryor for years. And to me, I don't know where that came from, but I want to call up the Colts defensive coordinator and tell him to go F off, because that was despicable. And I can't even talk anymore about this game. I'm heartbroken. Jim, to you.
Yeah, Terrell Pryor, if you were here, I'd apologize. I not that I poo-hooed him, but I'm not a big believer in somebody that has sort of been on the sidelines and basically is getting a chance because the starting quarterback's not playing well. And but he did what he had to do. He made plays, and that's all that it takes in fantasy football. He's pretty much become a legitimate QB2. For people that got hosed on quarterbacks in their drafts, I mean, he's a guy to look at and pick up off waivers and play the matchup with him. And he's got a pretty good one this weekend against the Jaguars.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Oh, and by the way, I want to say something. Everybody has been all uppity up about Andrew Luck in this game, and man, he didn't throw, I think, for over 200 yards.
No,
178.
Yeah. So everybody needs to take a little breath here and kind of say, okay, so the guy may have had 2 passing touchdowns, a rushing TD. That's great, but those passing numbers are not good.
Yeah, from a fantasy standpoint, absolutely. But from a football standpoint, some of the throws that he made, and just he's not the fleetest of feet, but he's got raw athletic ability and can escape.
Yeah. But what I'm saying though is these are sort of it's indicia of whether things are going well or not well, or potentially could be going well or not well. I mean, you want your stud quarterback to be throwing 250 plus yards, not under 200. So
how about this? For a team like the Colts with a quarterback like Luck held in such high regard as he is, they're one of the few teams that ran the ball more than they threw it.
Wow.
Yeah.
26 rushing carries, 23 pass attempts.
Well, it's gonna be an interesting week because off of what we talked about with Miami and their defense, see what he does against that defense. I mean, that's going to be a very this could be an eye-opening game for everybody.
Yep.
And that having been said, I would not be hesitant playing the Dolphins against the Colts this weekend.
Okay.
Or against Andrew Luck, sorry.
Okay. Now the Seahawks went all the way to Carolina, and I picked the Panthers because my justification was that I would never pick a West Coast team going east. But then I heard a little tidbit about how after the game, of course, about how the Seahawks prepared for this game as far as the time change. And all preseason, they started their practices at 10 o'clock Eastern time, even on the West Coast, so that their biological clocks wouldn't have to adjust for week one, which obviously, in retrospect, stroke of genius. But in this game, they win 12-7. The Seahawks defense, to me, doesn't disappoint. Russell Wilson, who I picked to have us take a step back this year, didn't look at in this game. 25 of 33 for 320 yards and a touchdown. They did have a little bit of trouble running the ball, but Carolina does have a decent defense. D'Angelo Williams, 5.1 yards a carry, no touchdowns, but he gets 86 yards. And Cam Newton, 16 of 23 for only 125 yards. That number has to improve for Carolina if they want to do anything. What's everyone taking away from this game?
I was very surprised because Carolina's defense, they do have a good defense, but Marshawn Lynch, in my opinion, did not look like Marshawn Lynch. He just underperformed greatly. I mean, when you are a running back of his ability and you only put up 2.5 yards a carry, and like I said, Carolina's defense, they do have a very good defense, but I don't think it's that great to the point where they were able to shut him down the way they did. So I'm almost wondering, I'm very interested to see what Lynch does this week against a very tough 49er defense, because this might be, if I go off of what I saw in this first game, this could potentially be a very long season for anyone that has him in their fantasy league.
I'm not as worried about Marshawn Lynch. I think this game was very similar to the game last year when the Seahawks traveled to play the Panthers in Carolina. Low scoring, defensive oriented game. I even would dare say that Russell Wilson had a decent passing game there as well. I think the bigger storyline here is Cam Newton. I mean, everybody was high on this guy in the preseason. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people. I heard it from a lot of people. He's a top 5 quarterback and this and that. And I'm just like, no, I think you need to hesitate before you say that. He's certainly got the skill and ability to do it. But, his skill and ability is not enough for a good defense like the Seahawks. And until it is, that Carolina Panthers team will not be a contending team.
Okay, Cam Newton had 23 pass attempts. 18 of those targets went to Greg Olsen and Steve Smith. Mm-hmm. The next person was down the list was D'Angelo Williams, targeted 3 times. So
they had a good shot. I mean, they had the lead going into the fourth quarter. So I mean, the Panthers, you got to wonder, what happened with that offense? Because they do have a solid offense. And when you go into the fourth quarter with a lead at home against a team like Seattle, you just got to put your foot on the pedal, and you need to find a way to win that game, especially early in the season. So I'm surprised that Seattle didn't win by more, but I'm equally surprised that the Panthers didn't, go for the jugular when they had the chance.
Alrighty. Next up on the docket, Kansas City and Jacksonville. We all knew the Jaguars were going to be bad, but I don't think we thought they were going to be this bad. Or maybe the Chiefs are just that good. New head coach, new quarterback. Only 173 yards passing for Alex Smith, but he got 2 touchdowns out of it. Blaine Gabbert, who apparently injured a thumb or a finger, 16 of 35 for 121 yards, 2 picks, sacked 6 times, a QBR of 1.2, and a overall rating of 30.8. Chad Henne did not fare much better in his only 6 pass attempts. The Jaguars' running game, Maurice Jones-Drew, 15 carries for 45 yards. Again, nothing really to speak of on Jacksonville's side. For Kansas City, Jamal Charles, 16 carries for 77 yards. And if I remember correctly, he did miss portions of the game with an injury. He did get a touchdown. The receiving core spread out. So, again, Dwayne Bowe, only 6 targets, 4 catches for 30 yards. Donnie Avery and Junior Hemingway catching the touchdown passes from Alex Smith. What's everyone think about this game?
Well, the Chiefs, they looked good, not great. They looked good. I mean, Smith threw it 34 times, 21 for 34, and only 173 yards. So I was a little put off by that. I mean, the offense looked good, defense looked good. Jacksonville just looked awful. And the question I have for Jacksonville is, as bad as this team is, why now wouldn't you give a phone call to a certain man named Tim Tebow? Like, seriously. Gabbert, you cannot tell me that you think Blake Gabbert or even Henne are better quarterbacks than he is.
Wow.
I mean, bring in somebody that'll spark some kind of life, because they just look dead. I mean, it almost looked like the Chiefs were playing a game against nobody. I mean, it was kind of embarrassing. So for me, I think the Jaguars need to figure out something, or they could very easily be the next 0-16 team.
Putting the Jaguars' problems to the side, the Kansas City Chiefs have a true challenge ahead of them this weekend. For a team that beat a team that's not good at all, to have passed for under 200 yards and rushed for under 100 yards, they're going to be playing a Cowboys defense that looked awfully good this past weekend against the Giants. Opportunistic, playing at a high level. I mean, they look like the Bears of old. And I think we're about to really see what this Chiefs team is made of. Because if they can come out of that game with a win and or play at a high level where they're not turning the ball over, that they're actually moving up and down the field, then I'm going to be a believer in the Chiefs. But on the other hand, based on what we saw the Cowboys could do, man, I would not be surprised if what looked like a good thing for Kansas City is not looking so good anymore.
All right, the Cardinals at the Rams, a game that was surprisingly neck and neck, evenly matched, entertaining to watch. Carson Palmer apparently knows how to look for Larry Fitzgerald. He finds him twice in the end zone, 8 catches on 80 yards and 14 targets for Larry Fitzgerald, which is good news to his owners. For the Rams, yeah, right. For the Rams, Sam Bradford goes for 299 yards, 2 TDs and a pick. Darrell Richardson, labeled the starter out of camp, 20 carries for 63 yards. For the Cardinals, Rashard Mendenhall, 16 carries for 60 yards and no touchdowns. On the receiving end, you had Andre Roberts catching 8 balls for 97 yards but no touchdowns. And for St. Louis, Jared Cook, the tight end coming over from Tennessee, 7 catches, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. Is this something that we are going to see week in, week out, or do you think it's a flash in the pan, Jim, from Jared Cook?
Oh, I think Jared Cook is the real deal. I think that based on what we saw, put it this way, I think the Rams' offense is better than what many think, and I'm stunned because I didn't have Sam Bradford ranked in the top 24. I like him. I think he's worth picking up. I think he's even worth playing this weekend if you are really quarterback challenged. He's got some tremendous receiving weapons. They're all very fast. I mean, Jared Cook almost had 3 touchdowns this past weekend. That is just obscene. And he's the last person on earth I think anybody would have expected to produce as he did. So I kind of like what I'm seeing from the Rams. And if they could put that together with their defense, this could be a much better team than people are giving them credit for.
All right, Steve-O?
I agree.
Okay.
We're running low on time. I'm going to be short and sweet with mine.
All right, Packers at the 49ers, another game that back and forth, marred by the ugly penalty by Clay Matthews on Colin Kaepernick, but still a pretty good game. The Niners hold the ball for 38 minutes, yet somehow only win by 6. Colin Kaepernick, 412 yards passing, trying to tell everybody that last year was not a fluke. Aaron Rodgers, likewise, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. What are we taking away from this game?
The Niners still, honestly, I think this is going to be the NFC Championship game, just these two teams, and they proved it. I mean, they both looked great. I mean, Green Bay was able to stay with them even after that early ugly incident with Matthews, and then we come to find out now, after the game was done, that touchdown that followed should have never happened, because instead of it being 4th and 2, they replayed 3rd down, which wasn't proper. But Green Bay was able to take that adversity and still, at the end of the game, force the 49ers to make some plays and to win. And to me, I think these are, I would say, the two best teams in the NFL. It was a great game. It was an entertaining game, and I think that we're going to see them again at the end of the year.
3 things, and I've called the first 2. Colin Kaepernick's the real deal. Anquan Boldin is the real deal. And the third thing to take from this game is that hit that Clay Matthews threw on Colin Kaepernick, that was uncalled for. The guy was clearly out of bounds.
Yeah.
Clearly out of bounds.
Yeah, he was almost to his car. So, but Anquan Boldin, 13 catches for 208 yards. I know what you're saying, that this is the best team in football, but you cannot leave that guy open for 13 catches on 17 targets for 208 yards. Some of it obviously could be, attributed to the 49ers offensive scheme and making Bolden available, but they need to tighten up that secondary on, if they're going to stand a chance.
But if you notice, a lot of his routes, he was, for most of this game, he was very Wes Welker-like. They were having a lot of underneath, a lot of, he did have some long down the field catches, but most of them were little dip and ducks that you would see from like a Danny Amendola or a Wes Welker. And it worked perfectly for him because it got him open and he was able to get some yards after the catch. So if this is a new way to use him, I think it's brilliant.
He was the most underused asset on the Ravens, and the playoffs last year proved it, and this game proves it.
Absolutely.
All right. The Giants at the Cowboys. A tale of two halves for sure. Eli Manning starts out of the gates really, really, really slow. Comes back to have a decent game, 450 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did have the 3 picks, though.
Yeah, it's decent.
It's decent. It's all right. We'll take it. Romo, 36 of 49 for 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. Cowboys running game, 86 yards for DeMarco Murray. The Giants running game, well, David Wilson is the story of that. 2 early fumbles, and he found himself on the bench in a even bigger hole than he found himself last year. The Giants, multiple pass catchers over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns for Victor Cruz, 1 for Brett Myers. What are we taking away from this?
2 things. One,
Myers,
Darrell Scott showed signs that he actually could be a potential starter for this team. He blocked well, he ran well, and he was able to catch some passes out of the backfield. So, with the issues they're having right now, I think they have somebody that could at least fill that void. The other thing, the Giants to me are scary. They're a dangerous team because the fact that even though they turned over the ball, was it 6 times was the end out, or was it 5? I want to say 6.
What?
They turned over the ball 6 times.
Yeah.
They were still in this game at the end against a very tough Dallas team. And Manning, once again, he was the second best quarterback this week behind his brother, throwing 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. So to me, this is a very dangerous Giants team. And if anyone thinks that thinks that they can just roll over on them from week to week, I think they have another thing coming. They're going to be a very surprising team.
Yeah, what a shocker. I mean, I did not. There's a lot of things about this game I didn't expect. I've already mentioned the Cowboys' defense. I did not expect Eli Manning to just come out of the gates throwing like he did. I mean, that's certainly a performance that if he can keep that up, he will come back into elite quarterback status in fantasy play, those wide receivers, because they're going to post some numbers. If you have David Wilson, don't give up on him yet. The fact that they've lost Andre Brown today, Darrell Scott showed up on the injury report, and it sounds like he might even miss this weekend. They need David Wilson. He's an explosive player. He's just got to get through this. Start him this weekend.
Don't pick up Brandon Jacobs.
Yeah, don't. He's actually, besides being 31, I read a report today, he is, I want to use the word extremely, but let's say particularly overweight.
But he knows the playbook because he ate it.
He does.
All right, Monday night game, Eagles at the Redskins. RG3 obviously showed that he had not played a single preseason game as it took him a half to get warm. Finishes 30 of 49, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Mike Vick, 15 of 25, throws 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, runs for another score. And had the Eagles, or I'm sorry, RG3 rather, had the Redskins knocking on the door in the fourth quarter. So is it just a matter of rust in the first quarter for Griffin, or are the Eagles, and again, the story here was the Eagles offense, and Chip Kelly threw some really awkward formations out there just to keep, just to show everybody that he was actually, trying to be creative. And up-tempo, and then there were some faked injuries and everything like that. It was pretty obvious, even though the league says they didn't. I don't agree. Leonard Hankerson with 2 touchdowns. What are we taking away from this?
Well, RG3 definitely was what I thought he would be going into the season. He just seemed, very gun-shy. It looked like he was, anytime anyone fell towards his legs, he would just jump out of the way, terrified of, which I don't blame him. The guy wasn't able to play in the preseason, so this is the first real action he's seen. But what I take from this is, the Redskins could have been shell-shocked. I mean, the Eagles, 58 offensive plays in the first half, which was crazy, insane. I mean, the Eagles were – I've never seen a team move so fast. It was unbelievable. And I'm worried about this for a major reason. They interviewed Michael Vick, and when he found out how many plays and they asked him what it was like in that kind of speed, his one saying was, it's going to be a long season. So you got to wonder, for a game that moved as fast as they moved the ball, and Chip Kelly saying they didn't move it fast enough, how is this team going to be able to keep up this pace for an entire season? And it's going to be interesting to see.
I was looking at RG3's box score, and I thought it was perfectly fine. I mean, if you didn't know anything else about the game, it looked like he had a very good game. Where the Redskins their offense went off fouls, they could never establish a running game. Mm-hmm. Roy Halou was hardly used, but more importantly, Alfred Morris. I mean, he had some very pedestrian numbers compared to what we expect to see from him, and that's a problem for any team playing this Eagles team. If they fall behind and given the pace, they're going to have a hard time keeping up with them. And some teams really need their running game, just like the Redskins. So, for the Eagles, God bless them. I think this is a great offense. Michael Vick's a lot better than what I expected. I do worry about him being able to make it through an entire season, because he even at one point got up and he looked a little lame, and I thought, oh boy, here it is. It's only week 1. So we'll see. Yeah, and,
LaShawn McCoy just lit everybody up.
Oh, he was unconscious.
Oh, my God. I feel awful that, at some point I thought of him as a top 5 running back, and for various reasons pushed him down my list a little bit, and I was just like, man, this guy looks awesome.
Well, and if they're going to run that up-tempo stuff all day, and if he's got the stamina to stay with it and stay healthy.
Now, apparently after the game, he had mentioned and talked to Coach Kelly about the number of touches that he had, in that it was too much.
Yeah. He's going to run him out. I mean, he's going to wear him out.
Yeah. So keep an eye on that. And the final game of the week, Houston at San Diego. Now I got to tell you, I know we're over time, so I'll just tell you this story anyway. I had a softball game on Monday night. And, we went
just the way this all started.
We went to an establishment to have some adult beverages afterwards, and this game I thought was done in the third quarter. I got in my car, came home, went to bed, get to work the next morning. Oh yeah, I can't believe Houston pulled that game out. I'm sorry, what? Maybe it wasn't Norv. I'm just kidding. That was just a joke. Phillip Rivers looked really good early on, threw four touchdowns. It took the Texans a little while. Do you guys think that this has anything to do with the reduced practice time in the offseason? I mean, there's a lot of teams that just couldn't seem to get on the same page for a half.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's just, you see it every year with teams. You just, they just have to gel and they have to kick it in. I mean, you look at the Texans, they held off. Phillip Rivers didn't have a great game passing, but he did end up throwing for 4 touchdowns and made some big throws when he needed to. And as rough as he is still he has that potential to be a top quarterback. So you can't fall asleep on him. And that's what it seemed like Houston did to me, is they just kind of thought this was going to be an easy win and didn't really give the Chargers enough credit.
Phillip Rivers impressed the heck out of me, being able to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as he did, move the team up and down the field, and in all that, score 4 touchdowns. I couldn't believe that stat line. When is the last time Phillip Rivers has scored 4 touchdowns? Somebody needs to find that out, because I'd like to know. And at the end of the day, where everything went wrong for the Chargers, because they looked like they were winning this thing, is the fact that their defense eventually just couldn't keep up with the Texans. Matt Schaub had a great game.
Great game.
He and Andre Johnson looked like, man, they were born together, and they're attached at the hip, and so God bless them. I'm happy for them that they were able to come back and pull out, because this ended up being a big win for the Texans, and not a terrible loss for the Chargers, but one that's going to hurt, because this coming weekend they're flying all the way to the East Coast to take on the Eagles, and from my perspective, it's hard to look at anybody really on the Chargers and think that they're going to have a good game, because just from that West Coast to East Coast thing.
November 6th, 2011 was the last time Phillip Rivers threw 4 touchdowns in a game.
Wow.
He did it again.
And here's the thing, though. How many yards did he have in that game?
385.
Yeah.
I mean, he threw 4 touchdowns for 195 yards. That alone is just mind-boggling.
Credit Ken Weisenhunt for that.
Yeah.
That is an amazing offense. And, for everybody out there that's poo-hooing Antonio Gates, he only had 2 catches, but he had 50 yards. That's pretty good for 2 catches. And I thought he looked solid playing in the field. He wasn't slow. He wasn't lumbering. He looked like he hadn't lost a step. I think it's really just a matter of how he's incorporated in the offense, which he can't control.
Alrighty. Well, that will wrap up week 1. Really quick about Houston. Are you concerned that Houston might become a complete RBC, because their rushing numbers weren't bad? There just wasn't enough of it. Neither one of them. I mean, Ben Tate had the higher average, but Arian Foster had 57 yards, Ben Tate 55 yards, 0 rushing touchdowns. From a fantasy standpoint, I know it's only week 1, but are you worried about that?
Am I worried about Arian Foster is the question?
Yeah, I guess. It being like not him as a player, but if they're going to split time like that.
No, at the end of the day, and that's a great question. I haven't looked at the touches to officially see, because I already knew they were going to limit his touches. But just from watching the game, it looked like he had as many as Ben Tate, if not more. I mean, when they were in crucial moments in the game driving down the field, Arian Foster was in the game, not Ben Tate. Yeah. It's a clear signal that he is their playmaker. He is the man. Just the culture of football indicates that he will be the lead running back for that team. I'm not worried.
24 to 11, Foster, as far as touches. Both
24 to 11?
Yeah, rushing and receiving.
Wow. Yeah, he's in firm command.
All right. Okay. All right, so now let's transition quickly to our week 2 picks. The first game tomorrow, New York Jets at the New England Patriots. While we've been on the air, ESPN is reporting that Mark Sanchez will most likely have shoulder surgery ending his season. So he gets let off the hook. Rex Ryan gets let off the hook. It's now Geno's team.
Nice.
He's not winning this game. New England. I am taking New England.
I am going to take the Jets. And the reason I'm going to take it is New England looks shaky, and their top 2 targets last week, Vereen and Amendola, are going to be out. I think the Jets make a step here. I think they're going to take it to the Patriots.
I think this will be a messy game. Tom Brady's probably going to still be working things out with players like Kimbrel Thompson. Aaron Dobson should be getting some playing time this week. Julian Edelman, obviously, they're going to be covering him. And, I think it'll be shaky. I think it could end up being close. But at the end of the day, it's the Patriots. They have a great rush defense. There's nobody on the Jets in terms of their offense that scares me, or I think would scare the Patriots defense. So We'll take the Patriots at home in a close one.
Minnesota at Chicago. For all of the struggles that Chicago had against the pass and on third down last year, Minnesota's not going to throw the ball because just simply from the Christian Ponder standpoint, what does scare me as a Bears fan is Adrian Peterson, and he does like to run against Chicago an awful lot.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, I'll take the Bears at home here.
I agree. I think Forte goes north of 100 yards this week, and I think the Bears are going to have a pseudo-easy time with this game.
Bears. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm taking the Bears too, and I agree. Matt Forte, he's one of my top 5 starts this week. You can read the report and others like it at www.thefantasygreek.com. And like you, Keith, Adrian Peterson, the great Bear killer, but I think this weekend the Bears come out on top.
The only person that killed the Bears more than Adrian Peterson is Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders, absolutely.
Or Brett Favre.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to hear his name.
Brett Favre.
Favre.
Rams at the Falcons. If you would have asked me before last week, I would have said this was hands down going to Atlanta. The fact that I'm so muddled about it has nothing to do with, I don't think Atlanta's bad. I think St. Louis is that much better than I thought they were. If Roddy White's still fighting this high ankle sprain, nothing's for granted. You know what? I'm going to pick the Rams to upset the Falcons.
Wow.
I'm telling you, I'm going to pick it right now.
Boy, that seemed tough for you, man.
It did because in the NFL it's so hard to win on the road.
Yeah.
Especially against a team as good as Atlanta. But I'm going to make that my upset pick.
I'm going to pick the Falcons just because I believe that they're at home this week, and I think this is the first official must-win game for a team this season. I think they have to win this game to get themselves on a roll that they need to get onto. So I'm going to say the Falcons.
For once, I'm going to agree with Keith, and I'm going to take the Rams in this upset. I just like what I saw last week. I think this is a much better offense than people are giving it credit for, and that defense is outstanding. Rams.
And Jeff Fisher could beat Mike Smith's ass.
For sure.
Carolina Panthers at
Not Buddy Ryan, so.
Wait.
Right.
Ditka, Fisher.
Yeah, I'll take a 13-inch Ditka by 3 points.
Yeah, you take a 13-inch dick, you freak.
Easy. Panthers at the Bills. EJ Manuel played, phenomenal. Didn't turn the ball over. Didn't get sacked. I'm going to pick the Bills at home here.
I agree. I am going to pick the Bills. I think at home they're going to find a way.
I'm going to take the Panthers in this one. The Panthers played the Seahawks really close, and Russell Wilson put up, what did you say, 300-some yards?
Yeah, he had a
TD. The Bills are not going to be able to do that just yet, and I think their defense is, at least in terms of their rush defense, is good enough to slow C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson, so I'm going to take the Panthers in this one.
I think this is going to be a 9-6 game. I really do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. I mean, there's... Here, if the Panthers can beat the Bills, this is how they can beat them. Newton to Steve Smith, Newton to Greg Olsen. That's it. They don't really have a very good rushing game. And the Bills have a decent enough defensive line. Actually, not decent enough. It's actually quite good. That they won't be able to establish a running game. So that's the way this should go.
All right. Redskins at Packers.
Ooh. Packers.
Yeah.
Packers.
So now, if the Redskins lose, they're 0-2.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yes, they are. And I did pick them to win the NFC East. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
I told you, Redskins have the toughest schedule this season.
They should have won that game.
I'll take the Packers too. And for anybody that's interested, there's several players in this game that I've identified as top 5 plays this week by position.
Nice.
Wait for it. Dolphins at Colts. We all talked about how much we like the Dolphins' defense. They were my pick to win the AFC East. Andrew Luck at home. The Colts defense got shredded by Terrell Pryor. Ryan Tannehill is not as mobile as Terrell Pryor. I will take the Colts at home.
I agree. I think they will find a way. If they were playing at Miami, it might be a different story. Playing at home, I think the Colts find a way.
I'm going to take this as another upset special. Dolphins over the Colts. I love the fact that this is indoors for the Dolphins offense. I think there's lots of opportunities for it to thrive. And I think that Dolphins defense is that good. It's just going to be overwhelming for Andrew Luck. If I'm playing anybody in this game in fantasy, it's Dolphins defense.
All right. Cowboys at the Chiefs. The Cowboys needed 6 turnovers to barely win against the Giants last week. Des Bryant is nursing a mild foot sprain, not practicing. Kansas City showed a little something, but they were playing the Jaguars. I am going to take the Cowboys on the road.
I'm going to take the Chiefs, mainly because they did look pretty good. They looked, in my opinion, as good as the Cowboys. And there's 2 things. You did say Des Bryant already with the foot, which might not be a big deal. But also, I still think Tony Romo's injury was a little more severe than everyone was planning on. And if he's not 100%, I don't see them taking this. So I am going to say the Chiefs.
I hate saying this again. I'm going to agree with Keith.
Why do you hate saying that?
I'm going to take the Cowboys. I love what I saw from their defense last week. I think we're about to find out this week, what Alex Smith what he's made of. And it may turn out that what we'll see is more like what we saw when he was with the 49ers. The problem with the Chiefs' offense is it's very much resolves around a short passing game. And I think the Cowboys, they're going to have the answers for that. And unless suddenly they go vertical, they're going to have problems scoring. Jamal Charles will be the best fantasy play on the Chiefs. The Chiefs' defense does concern me. It could be a much closer game. It could give Tony Romo problems, but at the end of the day, Cowboys come out on top.
Alrighty. Browns at Ravens. God, if I thought for a chance that there was a chance in hell that Brandon Weeden could actually play quarterback in the regular season, I would actually entertain this because I like Cleveland's defense. I like Trent Richardson. I don't like the fact that they were so lopsided in last week's game, needlessly lopsided. The Ravens started out quick and then struggled mightily against the Broncos, but Weeden is not Peyton Manning. Ravens win this one at home.
I agree. Ravens.
Yeah, I'm taking the Ravens too, and I've got the Ravens as a must start in fantasy football in this game. Any offense that gives up as many sacks and interceptions as the Browns did last week, you need to get your defense on the field against them.
Titans at the Texans, the battle of franchises that do and once called Houston home. The Titans put up a good show against Pittsburgh, and the defense might be legit. I just think Houston's got too much on either side of the ball. Houston takes this.
Yeah, I think Houston's going to take this in a blowout. I mean, their offense, if they can get Foster clicking, with the way Schaub and Johnson played last week, I think their offense, regardless of how good Tennessee's defense is just going to be too overwhelming for them. Say Texans.
Yeah, it's a unanimous here. Texans over the Titans. I think you get the playmakers in, but at the end of the day, the Texans playmakers should be much better.
All right. Chargers at the Eagles. Chargers, again, we just talked about them, started out very quick and then ended up blowing it at the end. They travel to Philadelphia, West Coast to East Coast again. I'm still picking. I won't do it unless I hear about somebody setting alarm clocks differently. The Eagles take this one at home.
Yeah, I don't even if they were playing in San Diego, I would still pick the Eagles. They are still early in the season. Everyone is still healthy. And I don't know if anyone has an answer to this offense yet, so I'm going to say the Eagles.
It's a unanimous Eagles on my part. If you are an Eagles fan, you need to come to thefantasygreek.com and read my top 5 pick articles by positions because you, Eagles fans, will be happy.
All right.
Nice.
Lions at Cardinals. Arizona seems to have the offensive weaponry now with Carson Palmer at the helm. Detroit, again, we talked about them in the preview show. If they could get out of their own way, the team could be scary, dangerous. I like Detroit to win this game on the road.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. With Detroit, their offense looks outstanding. No one had an answer for Reggie Bush last week, and Kelvin Johnson pretty much went under the radar with only 37 yards receiving. Even if that flip-flopped, I think Detroit is too dangerous. I'm going to say Detroit.
I'll pick Detroit as well in this one. One of the things I want to point out about the Cardinals was that even though they did lose to the Rams last week, wow, did Carson Palmer change the face of that offense. I mean, all three of their wide receivers had nice, box score stats, something we haven't seen in a while. So, I think they could keep up with the Lions. That's not going to be an issue. But in the end, the Lions will win this game.
All right. Saints at Buccaneers. It's not even a contest. Tampa Bay is dysfunctional right now. Saints win this.
I think this is going to be the biggest blowout of the week, and I think the Saints are just going to demolish them.
I agree.
All right. Jaguars at the Raiders.
Ooh.
Poor Jacksonville, because before the season they were probably looking at this game as one where they actually had a chance, and then Terrell Pryor runs all over Indianapolis, and I don't feel so good about their chances in this one anymore. I'm going to pick the Raiders at home.
I think from now on, for any of these pick shows, whoever the Jaguars are playing, just say the other team's name, because we'll probably all agree.
Just keep going past it.
Because it's the Raiders.
I'll take the Raiders too, but I'm Chad Henne could potentially be the savior for the Jaguars this season. I mean, last year you look at the games that he played and compare it to Blaine Gabbert, he blew the guy's statistics out of the water. Their fantasy players look so much better on the field with him under center. The hope is that's what happens here, but I don't know that he'll be able to do that in his first week, in the starting quarterback. The Raiders, come on, they're playing at home in the black hole. Terrell Pryor, give me some love. Darren McFadden, get him going. I mean, McFadden should have a huge game here, and in fantasy, he's an RB2, and that's the shame here.
All right, Broncos at the Giants.
Is there much debate here?
Yeah, you know what though? Based on the Giants' second half, they're going to give the Broncos a run for their money, but like we talked about before, Denver just has too many weapons, and Eric Decker didn't even get used last week, and they still have too many weapons. So I'm going to pick Denver to win this one on the road.
This is my upset special of the week.
Oh,
it is because I look at two things. First off, Giants played awful, and they also played amazing in that game against Dallas. So you got to wonder what team's going to show up. If you look at both quarterbacks, the Mannings were even. I mean, they were both 27 for 42. Peyton only threw for 12 more yards. The big difference was the touchdowns and the interceptions. If Eli can hold the interceptions, the Giants at home, if any team could give the Broncos trouble. Because honestly, you look at last week, the Ravens' defense looked like a Three Stooges skit. Guys were running in the wrong directions. They didn't know where to go. And it wasn't necessarily the routes that Denver was running. It just looked like the Ravens' defense was that bad. I think the Giants are going to find a way. This is my upset special, the Giants.
I think the Giants' defense will look just like the Raiders' defense last week. Well, maybe not just, but close. And at the end of the day, this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think the difference maker is the Broncos' defense. It is, even without Von Miller, they played well last week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they made plays. They've got, Trindon Holiday, who's just one of the best kick returners in the league. And I think that's going to be the real difference in this game. So I'm taking the Broncos.
All right. Niners at the Seahawks in what has very quickly become one of the better rivalries in the NFL, just by the fact that they're in the same division. This one is not so easy to predict.
Nope.
Kaepernick is Kaepernick. He's going to throw the ball over the place. But, Wilson has some abilities too. They're both equally thin at wide receiver. They both have similar capabilities at running back. It's going to come down to the defenses, I believe, and I think that Seattle's is just a little bit better than San Francisco's, and they're playing at home at night in the loudest stadium in the NFL. I'm taking the Seahawks to beat the Niners.
I'm going to take the Niners, mainly because Kaepernick made me a believer last week. Like I in my mind, I still thought of him as, a running quarterback and somebody that really needed to prove something this season. What he did last week against Green Bay, and Green Bay's defense looked good last week at times, I will say, because he still threw for 412 yards. But I have to go with San Francisco. I still think they're one of the best teams in the league.
And Steve, I'm going to agree with you on this one as well. Last season, the way this rivalry sort of broke down was the home team won. But a huge difference was in one game, Alex Smith was the quarterback, and in the other game, it was Colin Kaepernick. And Colin Kaepernick still played at a high level. I don't care where they're playing. I think they can play at a high level. This will probably be higher scoring than I think most people will expect. And I'm going to take the 49ers to win it because, quite frankly, I really do think Anquan Boldin is the real deal. I've loved him for a long time. I just never thought he was used well with the Ravens. He's a guy that he can make the play on the defensive back. And I think Vernon Davis can too, and we're going to see more of that.
All right, last game, Monday night, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Both teams 0-1, looking for a win. Pittsburgh is obviously weak up front with Marquise Pouncey gone for the year, and the Bengals' defensive front seven is no joke. It's going to all be on Roethlisberger on the road in a division game. I am going to pick the Bengals to beat the Steelers.
I'm going to say Bengals, and I'm going to throw it out there. They're going to win by more than 2 touchdowns. That's my guess.
Wow.
Ooh.
The Steelers look that bad, and I think the Bengals are much better than what we saw last week against the Bears.
I'll take the Bengals in this one too, but I think what is absolutely sort of the story to watch in this game is the play of Andy Dalton. Last season, he had a series of games where he played like an elite quarterback, and then he had a series of games that, wow, he was pretty bad. And those games were generally against the Steelers and the Ravens, so that's the big thing to watch here, and hopefully Andy Dalton shows that he has made a huge step in his third year as a pro.
All right, real quick before we go, Jim, who are your must-starts and must-sits?
Oh, my God. Oh, you would ask me that, wouldn't you? Okay.
It was in the rundown.
Well, I know it is. But we didn't take a break. No, here. No, I think I've mentioned some as we've gone along. For example, I mean, I really do love Michael Vick this week. I think if you have him, you start him. Eli Manning. I also like Sam Bradford. At running back, I've mentioned Matt Forte. I mean, if Reggie Bush could do what he did to the Vikings, Matt Forte should be able to, especially if Kevin Williams misses another game. If you have any of the Eagles playmakers, you need to play these guys. They showed a lot this weekend, and in fantasy football, what they showed was you can count on them, and they can rack up the points. And one of the guys that I don't know if that I did mention when we talked about the Eagles was Brent Selleck. He was a guy that was a recommended start by the Fantasy Greek. He put up 50 and a touchdown this week against the Redskins. He should be able to or I'm sorry, not the Redskins, Chargers. He should be able to do more than that. I mean, this is a team that gave up 3 TDs to tight ends for the Texans. So that's why I like Pierre Garçon. Don't give up on this guy just yet. I know he was a disappointment. There was certainly, some struggles that RG3 had getting the offense going. But against the Packers, Pierre Garçon should be able to go off. We've talked about the giant wide receivers. Tomorrow night, I think if you got Julian Edelman, you need to start this guy. Tight ends, wow, what a difference a year makes. We're talking about starting guys like Jordan Cameron, guys like Julius Thomas, Jared Cook. That's crazy. But you know what? You play these guys, even in a tough matchup, because they look like they're the real deal, and people are letting them play. On defense, I like the Broncos. Certainly like the Bengals. And for kickers, I'll throw a couple at you. One will be Caleb Sturgis for the Dolphins. I forget how many field goals he had last week, but if you look at his numbers from college, he had numerous kicks over 50 yards. He's kicking indoors. He's kicking for a team whose offense can stall, and he's just a guy that you should have. And one of my favorites, my good friend Robbie Gould, it was telling that the coaching staff sent him out there to kick a 58-yarder. He's got those kinds of kicks in that leg, and I think the Bears staff is going to let him do it. They're going to let him do what he's paid to do, which is kick the football. And I like him this week against the Vikings.
All right. Anybody you recommend sitting?
There are some players. I had already sort of mentioned Andrew Luck, that I'm real hesitant against the Dolphins on him.
Okay.
I know people have drafted him as a starter, but my guess is they drafted him after they drafted a whole bunch of quarterbacks before him, so hopefully you got a good handcuff who has a good matchup. I'm a little concerned about Frank Gore. I don't know that you're going to have to sit him. Mm-hmm. It's just a tough matchup against those Seahawks playing at home. For wide receivers, I think the usual suspects are going to be in. There's not any guys. I hear a thing that people need to understand is players like Eric Decker and James Jones were likely overdrafted. These are guys that are wide receiver 3s. We saw what happened with Decker. We saw what happened with James Jones. The last guys on the totem pole and the last guys to get the football. If you've got other players, you might want to consider playing them. Kenbrell Tompkins is a guy that, because Danny Amendola won't be in the game tomorrow night, he's poised to have a great game, but will he have a great game? I certainly wouldn't bench Pierre Garçon and play Kenbrell Tompkins. If I had Decker or James Jones, I might consider it because there just seems to be more opportunity for him in the situation. Greg Olsen is a guy that gets me nervous as well, if only because, and you mentioned it, Keith, there's really 2 wide receivers on the Panthers, and that's Greg Olsen and Steve Smith and nobody else. It's a predictable offense, and with that being the case, he's a player that could struggle. And if you have one of these other guys like Julius Thomas or Cameron Jordan, you need to play him. And then on defense, I would stay away I wouldn't play the Giants. I probably wouldn't play the Chiefs. I think that the Cowboys' offense is good enough and will sort of bring them back down to earth. So those are my sits.
All right. And just like that, it's magic how that happens. We are out of time. Thank you all for joining us. Follow him at The Fantasy Greek on Twitter, fantasygreek.com. We'll be back next week, folks.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.